Hey, I'd like to welcome everybody to another episode of the People Productivity Channel where you can become the best you. In every episode, we focus on helping leaders, teams, organizations, and individuals learn tips and techniques that allow them to actually perform better in life. We do have a world where there's a lot of disruption and change, and everybody needs to thrive in changing circumstances. So, really learning tips and techniques from experts and people who are doing things is very helpful for you. I'm excited in that vein to have Bill Jensen with us today. Bill is a futurist. Bill is a prolific writer about things people could do to help themselves, things that companies can do to help themselves. He's got 8 books published. He's got another one coming out in March, The Day Tomorrow Said No. I think this is going to be a fascinating interview. And listen, stay tuned. I think there's a lot of stuff that you're going to pick up here because Bill's been there and done that, as they say. So, Bill, why don't you just share a little bit about yourself with our viewers, and then we'll just get into it.
Frank, I'm thrilled to be here with all of your audience. Thank you, everybody, for taking a few minutes of your day. I've had my own business for over 30 years, and it began originally as a marketing communication firm. And what really shifted my entire career was one job for PepsiCo. We were doing what was then the world's largest stock option plan, all employee ownership. And I was communicating to hundreds of thousands of PepsiCo employees all around the world. What does it mean to think and act like an owner? And Pepsi was very happy with our work, but I was not, because I was skilled in marketing and simplifying things and cutting through the clutter, getting a message out. But I really wasn't skilled in human behavior. So I went back to school. I got another degree in organizational development. And my thesis was on why can't we make work simpler?
Oh,
and
now I know where your site came from, simplerwork.com.
Exactly.
I get it.
And what happened was I started putting my thesis research results up on the web. And at the time, this was 98, it was not easy to put a lot of stuff on the web. So it took a lot of work. So a book agent comes along and says, you should write a book about that. So that became my first bestseller, called Simplicity. So ever since then, I've been branded as Mr. Simplicity. And I try to live up to that every day, making things easier for people to do their work. And really what I've learned, simplicity is an evergreen topic. Everybody always wants everything to be easier. But I've learned as the decades have rolled on to rebrand that, formalize it. So I take, for example, currently the future of work, and I make it easier for people for leaders to translate digital transformation into people transformation.
So, Bill, you came out with Work 2.0. When was that? 2015 or something?
That was actually earlier. It was in the early 2000s, and it was the follow-up book. It was the follow-up book right after Simplicity, and it really predicted what we're going through right now.
Yeah, and so share some of your predictions from what's more than 15 years ago at this point, right?
Well, the technology is finally catching up with us, but the leadership will is not. The toughest thing we all have to deal with right now is everything is so complex. I often, when I do talks, tell people your biggest competitive challenge is not what you think it is. It's competing for every single one of your teammates and your leaders and your underlings' attention. And most of us don't know how to communicate quickly, easily, get our points across, make things easily understood. So what I talked about in Work 2.0, and I've been talking about it ever since, is how we need to do much better at tailoring and personalizing workflows, information flows, and the tools themselves. Now, finally, as we're on the dawn of artificial intelligence, we're getting there technology-wise, but the problem, Frank, has never been the technology. We still, even with the most empowering environments, still have leaders who think command and control. I'm telling you what to do. You have to do it because I'm telling you to do it. Even in empowered environments, we build our structures like that. So where we need to get for things to be less complex is much more tailoring to each and every individual. Now, that doesn't mean every individual does what they want. We all learn differently. We all hear differently. We all view things
Yeah.
differently, perceive differently, understand differently. It's the tailoring of the understanding exchange, the
Mhm.
exchange of translating things from up here into action. So we need to get much better at doing that.
Yeah, and look, it's often referred to as human complexity, but there is a lot of human complexity that has to be dealt with. And when you get into trying to tailor everything to the people so they can consume it best, it's a bit of a leap for companies. I mean, they're going to have to really work on this for years. But I agree with you. This whole notion of empowering people, a lot of it is getting that information to them that they need, the way they need it, so that they can perform their best. What do you tell the companies you're consulting with? You know?
Well, for most companies, still things happen from the top down, even
Yeah.
if they are empowering. So it isn't what I tell them. The senior executives, I do a lot of coaching behind closed doors.
Okay.
So there's several exercises, and I can share this with you, your viewers, and they can go do it. The first is I ask people, what do you want your legacy to be?
Hmm.
And the amount of change that's happening is happening so rapidly. Most of us, depending on the amount of tech we use, will experience a lifetime's worth of change within the next 3 years. So I give them, let's say it's early 2020, I give them until, early 2023. What do you want your legacy to be? Now, legacy, first, you don't have to die to achieve it.
Yeah.
But think of it as if it's a eulogy around your funeral. It's the impact you have on people. It's how you're remembered. It's not the product you created or the
Yeah.
service you did or the sales you created. Steve Jobs created, a computer company, but it wasn't, I want to sell computers or iPads or watches or whatever. It was, I want to put a ding in the universe. So for every single leader that I begin with, how do they simplify things? I start with themselves
Hmm.
and the legacy they want to create. How do they want to be remembered?
Hmm.
And then I help them build each of their strategic plans, each of their goals, everything so it reflects, if we execute this plan properly,
Yeah.
my legacy will be my company will have put a ding in the universe or whatever it is to that leader.
Yeah, and the reality is you have a whole book on this. What is your life's work?
Yes.
Which really invites individuals to do this on their own, correct? Not just companies and leaders, but I think one of the things that most people struggle with is we have a school system where none of it's built around people's interests and aptitudes. It's the same problem, right? The number one thing that they should find out in education early on is, what is your aptitude? What are you good at? What excites you? And you should get more and more of that and be led into a very fulfilling life later on. But everybody goes through this basically, this journey that they put everybody through down this assembly line. They come out the other end, and then somebody says, "Hey, what am I going to do with my life now?" And it's tragic. So I don't think anything could be more important than people spending time on this, because it is an enormous gap. And I assume if people were to get your book, they could follow the instructions and
Yes. And so it was the first, thank you for knowing the catalog of my books.
yep.
But what is your life's work came out of, um, I was getting older and my friends were getting older, and I asked them, what are you really struggling with? And what I did is I went around the world, I asked thousands of people and then put 100 or so in a book form to write letters to their loved ones.
Mm,
And the first criteria was space. It could only be 1 to 3 pages long.
mm,
And the second was, I want you to think of it like a living will. We ended up calling it legacy letters. If we all, have living wills or, things that we pass on to our loved ones if and when we pass away, but very few of us create what are my values?
yeah.
If I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow and I wanted you to carry on my values, what are those values? And at the first drafts, many people wrote, be good to yourself, be kind to others, live your truth or whatever it is. Those are nice cliches. The
Yeah.
best legacy letters that were in the book and that I've since helped people write since then are, this is when I struggled with this. So, for example, one of my best friends at the time this book came out, he was just recently the head of leadership development for American Express. And he was in the American Express building across from the World Trade Center in New York City on 9/11 when the World Trade Center was coming down.
Right there.
He was there.
I remember that location, and
He was one of the people he was the last to leave the American Express tower, making sure everybody was out. American Express at that time, like many companies, was experiencing financial woes shortly after 9/11. He got fired. And even though he was almost sacrificing his life for the company to make sure his coworkers were there, and he wrote a letter to his children that said the most important thing is to remember who you can trust. Next to love, trust is the most important thing in your life. And his wife looked at it at one of the drafts of the letters, and he said, well, I want to do that. So his wife and their kids, who were now older, but then teenagers and younger, down to 6 or 8, all wrote letters to themselves about what it means, what really matters in life.
That's
so the process of what I have found as an author, as a speaker, as a blogger, and as a supposed expert in simplicity, we all think we know things up here and in here in our hearts. The act of writing it down clarifies it. So whether it's a legacy letter and what is your life's work, or whether I ask people what is your legacy as when I coach them, the act of articulating that focuses thing. And Frank, I know your effort, a lot of your efforts is on the productivity.
Yes.
The reason this is so important, we're not just getting, ethereal and out there with, touchy-feely stuff. The reason why this is so important is the world is sending so much stuff to you. You cannot be efficient, effective, and productive on everything.
Agreed.
All of this legacy stuff, and know yourself and articulate it and be able to tell people what truly matters to you, why that's important, that becomes your instant internal filter for all the crap that's coming at you, and enables you to say, not important, not important, important, urgent, but not important. And it helps you filter things much better. So this internal process is one of the ways we're able to cope with so much crap coming at us.
And it might be the most important 2 words for anybody to embrace in their life: know thyself, because that is a journey to learn to discover who you are by living life and your mission. Takes a while, I think. And it took me a while.
The last book that I wrote, Future Strong, followed up on before this next one that comes out, followed up on this theme. And one of the things to become future strong, meaning no matter how much disruption is thrown at you, you're able to keep going in the direction you wanted to go in and not be distracted or thrown off. One of the qualities was inner knowingness, know thyself. And after interviewing and researching and surveying a lot of this, I came up with what I called the 80-20 rule of inner knowingness. The Pareto rule. 80% of us think we know who we are, but don't.
I agree
and
with that.
We've only done 20% of the work. So yes, we can talk productivity, we can talk tools, we can talk efficiencies, we can talk artificial intelligence, machine learning, all you want, but it will always come down to you knowing yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the amazing thing about the world is that there's 7.5 people, and every one of these people is on a unique journey, encountering unique experiences. with their own skills, aptitude, history, and their own future. And, you know, the road that they're paving in front of themselves is really going to be determined by the bricks they choose to lay down. And I love this concept of inner knowingness. That's a pretty cool way of describing it. And people should spend, you know, time doing that. You know, how, when people go through this process of, you know, creating their kind of legacy and learning who they want to become, you know, how much has that focused the people who've done that, and how much has it improved their outcomes?
Tremendously. I mean, all different, you know, whether you're a Tony Robbins motivator
Yeah.
or, you know, somebody else, there are all different approaches to this, and I endorse all of them and none of them. But whether it's coming through me as your coach or somebody else, everybody who is coached through knowing yourself says it's life altering. And the reason this is so, so crucial, again, the more we go on into the future, the more crap is going to be thrown at you.
Oh, big time.
It is so crucial. So what happens is I give people a few simple tools. First, know yourself. And the unfortunate thing is human nature, what it is, most of us don't really do this until some traumatic moment.
Until it's
So,
almost, you know, the movie where you're hanging on the edge of the cliff, and then,
yeah. So that's, you know, for me, you know, my legacy began July 14th, 1994, the night my mom died. You know, for other people, it's either traumatic like that, or cancer, or it's joyous. You know, we came together as a team in a way that I never imagined, and I learned something from that. But rather be proactive. Don't wait for that trauma to happen. Start going through this process. And everybody says, why this is so helpful to them is it simplifies and clarifies everything.
it does.
So what I've learned, you know, so for example, one of the women who won one of the TED prizes uh, she was a nun, and she discovered all religions in the world have just one thing in common, and we call it different words, but it's known most commonly as the golden rule.
Mhm.
It's treat somebody else with kindness that you would want to, you know, the kindness you
Yeah.
would hope to get. So all religions in the world help unify those of us in the religion, but they also help segregate the people who aren't our religion. And yet
Yeah.
we all have something in common: love thy neighbor as you love yourself. So it's the clarifying moments, and this is why I'm focused on simplicity, is getting to the essence of who you are, so
So
that you
important.
know no matter what is thrown at you, this is how you're going to react.
Everybody watching this interview who has not taken time and set aside a little time every day to work on their legacy, keeping it to 3 pages or less, they should start this immediately, because there is nothing more important than people knowing themselves. And I agree with you. I mean, we are heading into a time of disruption and opportunity. I think there'll be more opportunity in the future than ever before, because so much is going to be possible. But people shouldn't really, you know, take the risk of going down long roads that they shouldn't be on. They need to travel the roads that are going to get them to where they need to go. And, you know, many companies go through these mission, vision, value exercises, and they're so important for that simple reason. What should we be working on? There are a million things you could be working on in a company, and there are tons of things you could be doing in your life. And it really does come down to focus and things, working on things that really do make a difference for you and matter and get you in the right direction. I think that's just such an incredibly powerful thing. What do you see coming with the future, right? Lots of things.
Yeah, what I'm helping people go through, again, I begin with the personal introspection,
Yeah.
because uh, this is this is like the serenity prayer of, you know, help me with the things that I can can control, and let me have grace with the things that I can't control.
Yeah.
Unless you are, an Elon Musk or somebody else who's creating that future, a lot of this is going to come at you out of your control. So know yourself, know who you are. Those are the big things.
Yeah.
And what's coming down in the future is much, much greater disruption than you can imagine. Technology, Frank, you and I and everybody we talk to and we consult with are people.
Yeah.
But the reality is, and this is the tough challenge all of us have to face, capitalism, no matter how much we love people and we say people are our most important asset, and we believe that and we act that
Yeah.
way, the reality is capitalism still treats people as costs.
Yes.
And the greatest thing that AI and machine learning and all of these robots can do is make things more efficient. And what's the greatest efficiency in a business? Taking people out. If you have 10
Yeah.
people doing something and you can use technology to get it down to 3, that's more efficient. Maybe not better, but more
Yeah.
efficient.
It's
So
more
where
efficient.
the future is going to go, it's going to force us to be, everything is going to be much more efficient as determined by a computer algorithm,
Mhm.
not necessarily by the human heart. So where the future is going is all of us are going to be forced into these kind of efficiencies. Some
Yeah.
of them will be great for us. Some of them
Some
will
people will
not.
be creating the efficiencies,
Yes.
right? Some people will be, working in robotic process automation, taking all of this kind of repetitive work that can be automated and doing it. Other people are going to be disrupted.
And
And people have to choose, right?
the challenge that all of us have is where, going back to your legacy, our values, our humanness enter in. So I'll give you an example. Back a little over 2 years ago, I think,
Mhm.
United Airlines stock really tanked. And the reason that happened was, well, first, all airlines use the oldest version of the consumer version of artificial intelligence that exists. It was created originally by American Airlines. It was called Sabre.
Favor.
And
Oh, sure.
and the artificial intelligence systems that determine what your seat costs and all of that stuff and how they can pack the planes so tightly began in the 50s and 60s with this beginning rudimentary artificial intelligence. But now, uh, all your a lot of decisions in a lot of situations are being decided by computers, not people. So going back to United a couple of years ago, they were overbooked and they offered, anybody volunteered, nobody volunteered to get off. So the computer had to assign somebody. And they said, you, Frank, you're going to get off the plane.
I
And
remember that
that
happening.
person did not want to get off the plane. He says, no, I'm not moving. I'm a doctor. I have patients where I'm flying to.
He was flying to the meeting. Yeah, that made the news.
And
Wow, big time. The
they
videos of
called
that guy.
security. They hauled him out. They dragged him. They banged his head against the seats. He got all bloodied off. He
Yeah.
sued United. United's stock tanked. The point is, they didn't have a person intervene and go, oh, we're only authorized to offer you $500 and a free. What if we offer you $10,000? Would somebody volunteer to get off? No. How about 50?
Yeah.
Somebody would have gotten off the plane.
They
The
could have
point is,
gotten other people off. They needed to be able to have room to think, to do the right thing, to care about people. You're absolutely right.
the
It was a
point is,
machine.
all of us, the future of all of our work, we are going to be, it's not going to be as drastic or as noticeable as the United example that I just gave. But there will be moments in every single day where a computer, an app, an algorithm will tell us to do one thing, and we have to decide, is that the best thing to do in this situation?
Hmm.
So knowing yourself, knowing your humanness, knowing
Yeah.
when to be more human in every situation is going to be crucial.
Well, I agree with you. Um, this whole notion of knowing yourself is just vital, that inner knowingness. And more importantly, it is the ability to sit down and really maybe disrupt yourself now to get ahead of this. there isn't going to be a knock at the door one day where somebody says, hey, listen, I've got the roadmap of what you got to go do. Start doing this right now. There's not going to be anybody there to rescue. You've got to get out in front of this, because it's very obvious what jobs are going away. I can't tell you what companies are going away, but companies will be going away, and it'll be the ones who are complacent about really embracing the future and pulling the future into the present, right? Because they have to do that. You've
Now,
written about courage too, and sometimes this takes some courage, right?
well, that where the courage comes from is knowing yourself. Any mother who has fought for their child in a
Yeah.
school district that isn't giving them the attention they need or something like
Yeah.
there, we have all been in situations where the person goes, it wasn't courageous, it's just what I needed to do
Yeah.
as a human being. Where the courage comes from is knowing yourself and knowing your convictions and what you stand for and what you won't stand for, and then interjecting yourself in the situation. But if I may, Frank, I want to
Sure.
take a slight detour.
Please.
We're getting awfully 30,000 foot-ish. If I could give your audience just a few quick transactional tips that isn't just about knowing yourself. So how do we simplify? How do we be more productive? How do we focus ourselves in a future that's chaotic?
Essence of this channel. Thank you.
A few quick tips, very transactional. First, remember the number 1440. 1,440. That is super crucial. And when I asked audiences what that is, a few people kind of get it eventually. It's the number of minutes in a day. It's the most important number that most businesses don't talk about. Why
Mhm.
is that so important? Because more and more things and more people are going to cram more and more stuff into your 1440, but you're never going to get 1441. So
Mhm.
the challenge is to recognize that you are a selection and choice machine. You need to make more and more choices every day about what you won't pay attention to. And what it needs to be a very narrow band of what you will pay attention to. So 1440. Another number I want to give you
Sure.
is 3 by 5, the 3 by 5 rule. People are so overloaded. All of us need to follow the 3 by 5 rule, which is if you're sending something electronically, a text or an email or something like that, most people will only pay attention to it maximum, it's usually shorter, maximum 3 to 5 seconds. So you got to be able to get to your point quickly. And if you're face to face, whether it's video or in person, people will only give you 3 to 5 minutes maximum, usually shorter, before they start tuning you out. So even in this situation that I've been in with you, I try to vary my tone of my voice, my
Mhm.
energy, my quietness, my seriousness, my funniness, whatever
Yeah.
it is, because I know I am competing for each of one of your viewers' attention. So I try to be more energetic. Usually when I do webinars and they can't see me, but they see my slides, usually I'm talking at least twice, sometimes 3 times as fast as I normally talk, because I know most people are
Yeah.
multitasking when they're on webinars. So I
That's true.
try to keep them entertained and keep their attention. So so
3 by
first is
5 rule. Yep.
1440. Second is 3 by 5 rule, and no, it's sacred. You can't violate that. You violate that, you lose people's attention. Well,
Mm.
how do I do that, Bill? Remember 3 words: know, as in knowledge, know, feel, do. Everybody is looking for from you 3 things as fast as you can give them to you. What's the one thing you need to know? Why do you care? Why do you need to care about it? And what do you want them to do? And feel, or emotional intelligence, is usually the most important and least paid attention to.
Mhm.
And feel
That's
doesn't
true.
have to be touchy feely. It can be, Frank, how was your day? How is it going? Uh, I hear this is happening next week. How's that going for you? Uh, Stay in touch with the human always. So the quick way to use 1440 better, the quick and best way to follow the 3 by 5 rule is know, as in knowledge, feel, know, feel, do. Communicate that as crisply and quickly as you
Mhm.
can. Here's the one thing I need you to know. This is why you need to care about it. Here's the one thing I want you to be able to do.
Yeah. No, listen, that is absolutely super advice. And look, they have to do a legacy. They've got to. I do believe that inner knowingness, if they could nail that, it is going to be their guiding energy and strength in so many ways, right? It will keep them out of trouble, avoid the potholes of life. You can't avoid them all, but you can certainly miss some of them. There's no doubt about that.
Practicing what I just preached to all of your audience, the one thing I want you to know from this session that we're having right now is that you need to know yourself. That's the most important thing to be productive. Not the tool, not the efficiency, knowing yourself. What's the one thing I want you to feel as a takeaway from this is feel both excited and empowered and a little bit challenged, because you probably haven't done that legacy thing yet. So feel challenged yet excited and empowered. And what's the one thing I want you to do? As Frank just said earlier, go get a piece of paper or do it online, 1 to 3 pages, communicate to somebody else. What do you want your legacy to be? And it can be pure business, it can be pure personal. It's up to you to decide. But know this is important. Feel empowered and challenged to do it, and go do it.
Yeah, it's just absolutely great advice. So, Bill, where can they find you? You're at Simpler Work. You have a blog there, right?
Yes. So my web and my page area is located at www.sim, as in mother, plerwork.com, simplerwork.com. And also, I want everybody to first email me, Bill at Simpler Work, and tell me what you got out of this. And if you do, I will send you a free mocked up version of my next book, which is The Day Tomorrow Said No. And if you want to go visit that, it's not yet live at the time we're recording this, but by the time others hear this or view it, it will be live. Tomorrow Said Yes, Y.es is the Tomorrow Said Yes is the website. But the book is everything we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to talk to leaders about the struggle to be more humane.
Yeah.
So the title comes from, there are 3 characters, today, tomorrow, and little one. And the book is a fable where throughout human history, tomorrow has always taken the handoff from today. But she sees how many people are being left behind by all this change. So the title comes from, for the first time in human history, tomorrow said no today. I'm not taking the handoff. You need to do this, this, and this first. And then
That's
the
cool.
story goes from there. So it's
Yeah,
going to
that's a
be
great story.
illustrated fable.
And by the way, a very, very good offer. So I recommend that everybody reach out to you, contact you, right?
Bill at simplerwork.com.
Bill at simplerwork.com. Let them know what they thought about this interview, right? And they'll get a copy of this upcoming book.
And I mean that, Frank. One of my best mentors ever, Jim Shanley, who used to be the head of leadership development at Nations Bank, then Bank of America, said feedback is the breakfast of champions.
Hmm.
And so I mean, email me and let me know how this affected you, or ask for more. And one time, to let you know how I try to practice this the way Jim taught me, I was doing this exact thing with Jim, and I was interviewing him for one of
Yeah.
my podcasts. And he called me up afterwards and said, no, tell me how I did. And I said, it was fine, Jim. No, I need to know what to improve. What could I have done better on? So Jim taught me that, feedback, yes, I love praise, I love kudos, but also here's what you could have done better is also helpful.
Almost the more valuable piece, actually.
Yes.
Right. At the end of the
Coming
day.
from a place of love, not,
Yes.
to be a pain in the ass.
That's right. But I look, you're, you do interviews all the time. You give talks all the time. You're a very interesting guest. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I think everybody should go to the site. Please do email Bill at Simpler Work and let him know what you thought. And if you think there's something Bill could do better, he's all ears. So, buddy, thanks. Appreciate you coming on. And hey, have a great Thanksgiving, huh?
Thank you, Frank, and thank you to all of you guys.
Take care, buddy. Bye.